Hello, everyone. This is Tracy Malone from NarcissistAbuseSupport.com. Today, I would like to talk to you about something that people come to me with every day. How do I heal from this? How do I move on? Like, how do I even know what's broken? I just know that this is a horrible place where I am right now. So, I wrote a blog the other day, and I want to share the information from that blog with you because there's some core things that, again, everyone's going to have different wounds, everyone's going to have different injuries and things they have to work on based on, your maybe old family of origin too. Whoops, didn't know that. Right? So it tends to overlap and you know, you find more wounds that have to be healed. So let's start by looking at really the core things that you're going to be up against, right? Narcissistic abuse leaves so many emotional scars that last long, long after the narcissist is gone. And it's really unfair. How come you're in therapy and they're out having another partner and end a happy life? It's because they weren't emotionally attached. They could have pretended it for many years, but your heart was broken because your heart was in it, right? And so when we look at some of the wounds that are going to be a byproduct of narcissistic abuse, most most important is usually a loss of self-identity. Who am I? Who was I? How do I get back there, right? When the narcissist has manipulated you and basically made you focus in on their lives, their needs, their desires, then your life kind of becomes eroded and you don't know who you are anymore. It's a wound that you feel like you've lost who you are. You don't know what you like. You don't know what your values are. When we have this, healing with it and healing the loss of self-identity is to learn to reconnect with your authentic self. And you're like, how do I do that? If I could have done that, Tracy, I would have genie wished it. But how do I do that, right? One of the things that can help is obviously therapy, working with a coach or a therapist, but also journaling. Who were you? Who do you want to be? I have a lot of videos out there about how to find yourself. But doing that work, doing some work on, you know, really looking deep inside so that you feel confident to go, yeah, in my marriage I was this, but I don't really like doing that anymore. This is who I want to be. So finding yourself is going to be key. That kind of comes in if it couples up with self-doubt, right? Because narcissists have gaslit you and confused you. They make you question your own perceptions, your own memories. That's the whole point of gaslighting, right? And then you end up with a wound of self-doubt. And this means that you are incapable, or you feel that you're incapable of trusting your own judgment, and you constantly second guess yourself, right? You are sitting here in a place where you just don't believe in yourself. And so the healing part of that is going to be about understanding what gaslighting is, seeking validation from friends or professionals to help you rebuild that confidence, because that gaslighting has gotten under your skin, right? And that's why you doubt yourself. That's why you can't trust yourself. So working on that, we can't trust others, which is my next thing I want to get to, until we trust ourselves. So if we have chronic self-doubt, we have to learn, why do I doubt myself? How do I heal from this? How do I move on from here, right? Because the self-trust ties into, as I said, trusting others, right? When you have been betrayed and the person that you loved more than anything, and you put a ring on it, um, you know, and they've imploded that trust. They've betrayed you. They've wounded you. They're fighting, and you're fighting for your life, right? Um, Trusting others is going to feel really awkward. I don't want to trust anyone else. I'm perfectly fine in my bubble here, right? But learning to trust slowly and carefully and really understanding and learning, how do I trust again? And really mapping out your schedule and mapping out your plans in a journal to go, I just met this person and what they did, and that didn't feel trustworthy. And what builds your trust? What breaks your trust? If you don't know those factors, how can you trust them? And if you can't trust them, how can you trust you, right? The other wounds that people and victims of a narcissistic abuse end up with are guilt and shame. It's almost like there's a big rubber stamp all over your face, right? They have shifted blame onto you. And as a responsible person, they'll make you feel responsible. It's your fault. You did it, right? So, but then we might have guilt and shame, right? And the guilt and the shame are different things. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. But what we have to do to understand this is understanding what the abuse is and understanding what your role in and understand what parts is your fault. I am not saying it is your fault that you were with a narcissist or that this happened to you. I personally know from my own experience, the wounds that I had to understand and the what's my part in it was that I did not know what a narcissist was. I'd been raised by like a whole like swamp of them. And so it was normalized behavior. I had to do a lot of work on that because I realized that I had a narcissistic family. I realized I was never taught boundaries because can't do that with a narcissist. I didn't have that skill. I didn't know how to speak up for myself. There's so much that, again, not a blame, but oh God, I have to learn that. That's part of it is understanding yourself, right? I would say the next thing that people face is feeling unlovable. They just don't trust anyone. They don't feel like they have any worthiness to themselves, right? Because the narcissist has eroded and devalued you, this is going to lead to that. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel worthy of love, right? So you have to learn to give yourself love. You have to learn self-love and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you and restore your self-worth. If you have people, I was with my energy worker today, if you have people that are very low, not energy, but energetically, like a narcissist is at the bottom of the sewer of energetic power. If you're with people who, when you leave them, you feel worse, they're not healthy people. They're not uplifting you. So try to find someone, right? Try to find people that will help you restore your sense of worth because your friends know who you are. We have to remember they wouldn't still be in your life if they didn't know that you were a good person. So it's leaning on the true facts and not sucking into the narcissist dialogue that is stuck in your head, right? The other thing that people and victims face are trauma responses. You've all heard of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? These are coping mechanisms and they become ingrained patterns and they can last well after the relationship ends because you're programmed to either freeze and just be like, don't know what to do, deer in the headlights, or fight or run, right? These trauma responses are normal, but that's why you need to work with a trauma-informed therapist to understand and manage these different stages that you might automatically go back into, right? Any little trigger can put you right back where you were in the, say, freeze or fawn or flight. And so learning them, understanding them, recognizing them is key. Because if you don't understand them, it's going to hit you like a big giant trigger and you're not going to understand it and you're going to freeze and you're going to think, oh God, it's all over again. It's coming back. When it's really just a little visit. It's not necessarily all of it's coming back off you again. Um, you know, most victims of narcissistic abuse are isolated and lonely, right? They were isolated from their narcissist with their narcissist. They wouldn't let them see friends and family, cutting them off. And so you end up feeling alone and disconnected and unsure where to turn for help. So how do we fix that? Uh, I think rebuilding your support network and joining survivor communities if you can. I have a Facebook group out there and there's 16,000 people in there. You get in there, you're going to start to heal because you're going to see that this isn't yours to hold. And often in a narcissistic relationship, the narcissist has smeared you so badly that you've lost your friends. You've lost the people that you can count on, or you've seen that some people that you counted on were not really ever there for you. And so therefore, you lose friends. you just go, oh gosh, they are siding with them, not me. And again, that's part of the isolation. That's part of it. And that's why they're friending your friends so that you don't have any more support. So if those people are lost and gone to the dark side, then you go and you find new friends. I remember after my divorce, I had a whole new single people group, and that lasted for a couple of years. And then I moved on to the next group, and now I'm nestled in with my besties and true friends and people I want to spend time with. You'll get there too. Just give yourself patience. I think one of the things that we have to think about too is the emotional exhaustion. When you have been like feeling like you're walking on eggshells, you're going to have chronic stress, emotional fatigue, and you're going to feel drained and numb and incapable with dealing with normal life. I'm sure you've been through that stage. It is not a forever stage, but prioritizing self-care and rest and stress is going to help you get stronger. If you are weaker, not resting, not eating properly, you are going to be emotionally exhausted, and it all is going to take a feather to tick you off and set all of the triggers back in place to put you back in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? I would say anger. We're going to pick the next thing, anger, resentment, right? It's kind of normal to feel anger and resentment at your narcissist for doing what they've done. But when we're holding on to anger, we're living in the past, and uh, we are not able to move on, because if you're sitting there in anger and you're so pissed off at them, they're actually in your backpack walking around with you every day. So, some people are consumed by resentment, and that keeps them from unable to be able to move on, right? So if we learn about anger, learn to manage it, learn to understand it, learn to understand the truth in why I'm angry. Is this an old pattern, a new pattern? Or maybe even finding creative outlets for you to take out your anger, and whether it's kickboxing or doing arts and crafts or some kind of creative thing for you to do that gets you out of the anger part. You need to get out of it because it will also make you very, very sick. Now, we all know about the grieving cycle, right? So there's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So when we are in the grieving cycle, we can it's not linear. We don't go, okay, I'm at bargaining. Okay, I'm at depression. I'm at acceptance. No, it's a washing machine going five different directions at once. One day you'll be sad. The next day you'll be angry. The next day you'll be like, no, it wasn't that bad. You'll be in denial until you ultimately reach acceptance, right? But to do that, you have to go through the process of grieving what was lost, what you thought you had. Even if it's a narcissistic parent, you thought you'd have a happy family. You thought this was going to happen, right? You need to understand that wound, because if you don't, every time you go back into sadness, you're going to be like, oh, it's starting all over again. It is a process. And again, going into depression and sadness at that point, you'd be like, well, what triggered me to back here? How do I get through this, right? You work with a therapist, you work with someone who's going to teach you emotional resilience so that you can manage the anger cycle, the depression, and all of the grieving wounds, right? Grieving what you lost is a really important thing, because if you don't, then you're in denial about it, and you're just going to sit here and be in that grieving cycle longer, right? Allow yourself to grieve, and that's going to pave a way for a new life to begin. If you get stuck in the grieving cycle and you don't move past it, then you're going to be stuck there for a long time. So I hope that helped, just outlining some of the things that are going to be the biggest hurdles, things you need to learn. I would add fear to that list. Fear is really important. If you have fears about the future, about the past, fear of making mistakes, this is something else you need to add, and make sure that you look at your wounds and you heal them, because it's going to trigger you again. And that's okay. It's not living there. If it triggers anger, okay, I'm feeling anger because this happened, but I'm not going to hold it. So this is Tracy Malone from narcissistabusesupport.com. I help people all over the world. If you are looking for help in recovery, help getting through your divorce, or any other narcissistic situation, you can reach me on my website, narcissistabusesupport.com, and I will look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you.